Peace to everybody, back with another video. This is Danny Aiello, Do the Right Thing and Moonstruck actor, dies at 86. And as you can see here in the screenshot is Danny Aiello who had passed away. And this came unexpectedly for me, so I didn't know he had passed away. He worked at Greyhound for a decade before appearing on Broadway in the Purple Rose of Cairo, the Cemetery Club, and a Madonna video. So he worked at a Greyhound for a decade before appearing on Broadway, the Purple Rose, Cairo, then the Cemetery Club, and then of course he appeared in a video with Madonna. Danny Aiello, the New York actor and former Greyhound bus employee, best known for his Oscar-nominated turn as Sal, the pizza joint owner in Do the Right Thing, and for portraying Cher's lovelorn suitor in Moonstruck, has died. He was 86. Yeah, so Danny Aiello, he was from New York, and he actor and former Greyhound bus employee as well. He was best known for his Oscar-nominated turn as Sal, the pizza joint owner in Do the Right Thing, and for portraying Cher's lovelorn suitor in Moonstruck. His rep Tracy Miller told The Hollywood Reporter that the actor died Thursday night after a brief illness. So Danny Aiello died Thursday night after a brief illness, but we don't know what kind of illness he had. Aiello, who didn't start acting until he was 35, often played loathsome types as in Woody Allen's The Purple Rose of Cairo, where he started as Mia Farrow's gruff, drunken husband. In a similar vein, he battled with Paul Newman in Fort Apache, the Bronx, portraying a crooked cop who tosses a kid off a roof. So Danny Aiello didn't start acting until he was 35 years old. He often played loathsome types as in Woody Allen's The Purple Rose of Cairo, which of course they came out in 1985, where he started at Mia Farrow's gruff, drunken husband. It's in a similar vein, he battled with Paul Newman in Fort Apache, the Bronx. That was in 1981, portraying a crooked cop who tosses a kid off a roof and all that. In The Godfather Part 2, Aiello played gangster Tony Rossetto. His line, Michael Corleone says hello, said as he guards Frankie Pentangeli was improvised, and he appeared as the neighborhood bookie who takes bets from Allen's character in the front. Alright, so The Godfather, that came out in Part 2, that came out in 1974. He played gangster Tony Rossetto. Also, in another movie that he was in, it was in Allen's character in the front, which that came out in 1976. So he had all these different kinds of movies that he was in. A real charmer, Aiello also portrayed Lee Harvey Oswald killer Jack Ruby in Ruby, started for Paul Mazursky as a flattering Hollywood director in The Pickle, and played it for laughs alongside Eileen Burstyn, Olivia Dukakis, and Diane Ladd in The Cemetery Club. So there's all these other ones he had played in also. He played Lee Harvey Oswald, killer Jack Ruby in Ruby. That came out in 1992. The Pickle came out in 1993. And of course, in The Cemetery Club, that came out in 1993 as well, that same year. The movie he always said he was most fond of was the New York set 29th Street, in which Anthony LaPaglia played his son. So New York set 29th Street came out in 1991, so that was he was most fond of. In a 2016 PBS interview with Rafael Pi Ramon, Aiello noted that Spike Lee had been after him to star in Do the Right Thing for some time. You got me making pizzas, flipping them in the air. That's a very Jinzo thing, he told the writer-director. So Spike Lee's been after him for a while to get him in the movie Do the Right Thing, which they came out in 1989, for some time. He also said, "You got me making pizzas, flipping them in the air. That's a very Jinzo thing," he told the writer-director. "I'm not happy doing that, so I turned it down." But he never stopped. He kept coming to places where I was, seeing me in a restaurant, taking me to a ball game, taking me to a Knick game. So Spike Lee never stopped chasing after him. Of course, Danny Aiello said that he was not happy doing that, so that's why he turned it down. He also said that Spike Lee kept coming to places where he was, seeing him at a restaurant, taking me to a ball game, and taking me to a Knick game. So this is what he was saying. I finally said to him, "If you give me an opportunity to add something to this character, I know this character. I may know him better than you," he said. Lee listened to his recommendations and allowed Aiello to supply bits of dialogue, like when Sal yells at the African American kids in his pizza place and says, "They grew up on my food." So he told Spike Lee to give him an opportunity to do something to this character, and of course Spike Lee had to listen to his recommendations and allowed Aiello to supply bits of dialogue. Aiello, who never took an acting class, was considered the favorite in the supporting actor race entering the Oscar telecast, but he lost out to Denzel Washington of Glory. Still, the experience made him feel for the first time that he belonged as an actor. So he never took acting classes at all. He was considered the favorite in the supporting actor race entering the Oscar telecast, but he lost out to Denzel Washington of Glory. Earlier, Aiello had refused to audition for director Norman Jewison, but still got the part of Mr. Johnny Camilleri. He with the itchy head in Moonstruck. It marked one of the few times he didn't play the tough guy. So that's the only time Danny Aiello never played the tough guy, and that was in Moonstruck. And that came out in 1987. He played Mr. Johnny Camilleri. He with the itchy head in Moonstruck. One of 6 kids, Daniel Lewis Aiello Jr. was born in New York City on June 20th, 1933. He was raised on the west side of Manhattan and then in the South Bronx by his legally blind mother, Frances. So that's where he was born at. He was born on June 20th, 1933. He was raised on the west side of Manhattan and then in the South Bronx by his legally blind mother, Frances. His father was absent more times than he was there. It seems he would come home once a year and my mother would have another child, he told the New York Times in 1990. and his family needed welfare checks to make ends meet. So yeah, so his father was absent a lot of times. He was never around for him. His father only came home once a year. It's, and of course his mom would have another child. And his family needed welfare checks to make ends meet. Aiello suffered from eczema as a child and wore gloves in school and to bed so he wouldn't bleed from scratching. Once he got arrested for stealing a chocolate bar from Woolworths and was taken to the 41st Precinct Police Station, that would be Fort Apache. At 17, he left James Monroe High School to enlist in the U.S. Army, and he was stationed in Germany. Yeah, so Aiello had suffered from eczema as a child. He had to wear gloves in school, wear gloves to bed, so he wouldn't bleed from scratching. He once got arrested for stealing a chocolate bar from Woolworths, and of course he was taken to the 41st Precinct Police Station, that would be now Fort Apache, and he was 17 years old at the time. He left James Monroe High School to enlist in the U.S. Army and was stationed in Germany as well. So this is what his life was like. After the service, Aiello landed a job in 1957 as a package handler with Greyhound, then became the public address announcer at the bus terminal on 50th Street in Manhattan. When ABC's Naked City came there for an episode in 1963, actor Frank Gorshin told Aiello to bump into him so he wouldn't show up on TV. So yeah, so after Danny Aiello did land a job in 1957 as a package handler with Greyhound, then became the public address announcer at the bus terminal on 50th Street in Manhattan. So if you happen to be around that area, do tour through there. He eventually ran for president of Local 1202 of the Amalgamated Transit Union and won, but he was fired after a wildcat strike by employees. So yeah, he ran for president of Local 1202 of the Amalgamated Transit Union and won, but then he got fired after a wildcat strike by employees. Aiello went to work for Bud Friedman as a bouncer and an occasional MC at the Improv, where he met a neophyte writer, Louis LaRusso II, who asked him to be in a play he had just written. I said, I'm not an actor, Aiello recalled. Yes, you are, LaRusso replied. You just don't know it yet. So Danny Aiello didn't know he was an actor, but even though he said he was not an actor, but LaRusso replied and said, yes, you are. You just don't know it yet. So this is what LaRusso was saying to Danny Aiello. Aiello played Biggie, a pop singer from Hoboken, New Jersey, in LaRusso's Lamppost reunion, and it went from converted churches to Broadway in 1975 when it earned a Tony nomination for Best Play and the actor a Theatre World Award. He then starred in the next two LaRusso efforts, 1976's Wheelbarrow Closers and 1979's Knockout. Both played on Broadway as well. So yeah, so Aiello did play Biggie, a pop singer from Hoboken, New Jersey. And he was in LaRusso's Lamppost reunion, and and it went from converted churches to Broadway in 1975 when it earned a Tony nomination. Aiello had made his film debut as the ballplayer nicknamed Horse in Bang the Drum Slowly. He said he taught co-star Robert De Niro a thing or two about how to throw a baseball, and The Godfather sequel marked only his second appearance on the big screen. And so Danny Aiello had made his film debut as the ballplayer nicknamed Horse in Bang Bang the Drum Slowly. It's a 1973 movie that came out. He said he taught co-star Robert De Niro a thing or two about how to throw a baseball. And of course, the Godfather sequel marked only his second appearance on the big screen. He took a crack at starring in a TV series playing a cop turned private eye, but CBS Della Ventura lasted just 14 episodes in 1987 to 98, so it was only a 1 year TV series. Aiello made up for his late start in the profession with a slew of movies, including Fingers, Once Upon a Time in America, The Protector, Key Exchange, The Stuff, Hudson Hawk, Aliens, Radio Days, The Pickup Artist, Harlem Nights, good movie, Jacob's Ladder, Luc Benson's Leon, The Professional, City Hall, 2 Days in the Valley, Prince of Central Park, and Lucky Number 11. So those are all the movies that he made up for in his profession with a slew of movies. On the set of Robert Altman's Ready to Wear, Aiello said, "Go yourself" to Lauren Bacall after she told him to shut up while he was practicing his lines, and he could never figure out why Martin Scorsese never cast him. "It hurts me that he didn't paint me on one of his canvases," he said in a 2017 interview. "I'm the only Italian American in the country that hasn't been in his pictures." Yeah, so Danny Aiello got kind of upset because Robert Altman's didn't paint a portrait of him at all, and he told Lauren Bacall to go, you know what, herself. And after she told him to shut up while he was practicing his lines, and he also said, "I'm the only Italian American in the country that hasn't been in his pictures." Aiello sang "Fly Me to the Moon" in Lasse Hallström's Once Around, and he wound up releasing a handful of jazz albums, including 2004's "I Just Wanted to Hear the Words," which made it to number 9 on the Billboard Jazz chart. He also played Madonna's dad in the 1986 music video for "Papa Don't Preach," directed by James Foley. Yeah, so he sang "Fly Me to the Moon," which I had no idea that he would sing a song like that in Lasse Hallström's Once Around, which that came out in 1991, and he wound up releasing a handful of jazz albums, including 2004's "I Just Wanted to Hear the Words," which made it to number 9 on the Billboard Jazz chart. He also did play Madonna's dad in a 1986 music video for "Papa Don't Preach," directed by James Foley. His memoir, "I Only Know Who I Am When I Am Somebody Else," was published in 2014, so he made a memoir of his life, of who he was. Aiello was married to his wife Sandy for more than 60 years. The couple had 4 children, sons Rick, Danny III, and Jamie, and daughter Stacy. So yeah, so him and his wife, they were married for 60 years, and that's a very long time. The couple had 4 children, sons Rick, Danny the Third, and Jamie, and a daughter named Stacy. Danny the Third, a stuntman who doubled for his dad in Do the Right Thing and a stunt coordinator on FX's Rescue Me, died in 2010 after a battle with pancreatic cancer. He was 53. So Danny the Third, Danny Aiello's son, he was a stuntman. He doubled for his dad in Do the Right Thing and a stunt coordinator in FX's Rescue Me. He died in 2010 after a battle with pancreatic cancer, and his son was 53 years old at the time. In a 2011 interview with Backstage, Aiello said acting was more important than ever after his son's death. It's not only what I do to earn a living, but it's a distraction that takes me away from things that trouble me terribly, like the loss of my son, he said. I suppose I could say acting is medicinal. It gives me a reason to keep living. I can't wait to get up because I'm going to act. Yeah, so Danny Aiello did say acting was more important after his son's death. Of course, it was a distraction to take him away from things that troubled him terribly. So, he didn't want to think about all the things that happened to his son. So, this is why he was keeping himself distracted by acting in movies. Survivors also include nephew Michael Kay, a former newspaperman and now play-by-play man for the New York Yankees. Aiello said he pulled some strings to help Kay get a job with the New York Post years ago. So his survivors also include nephew Michael Kay. He was a former newspaperman and now play-by-play man for the New York Yankees. So if you happen to hear the play-by-play man for the New York Yankees, that will be his son, Michael Kay, or his nephew, I'm sorry. And my condolences do go out to his family and friends and extended family for Danny Aiello's death, and I'm sorry that he passed away, but my condolences go to him as well. Leave your comments below. I am out.